So I'm going to be 100% honest here. The Fever can't afford to run it back. They can't. They simply put, do not have the funds to... why does every time I go into roster, does it send up a freaking AI question? But they don't have the funds to put their team together. Again. So I'm going to guess what these players are going to cost. I'm going to tell you what it will cost for the Fever to run it back. Before we get on to it, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to hit 57,750 subscribers by the end of the day. We are 46 off. So Kelsey Mitchell is not... I highly doubt Kelsey Mitchell is going to...
When the financial projections landed on the conference table, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Indiana Fever ownership found themselves confronting a devastating reality that no amount of optimism could mask. The numbers painted a picture of complete fiscal impossibility, making it crystal clear that maintaining their current roster through 2026 would be organizational suicide. This wasn't merely about making adjustments or finding creative solutions. It represented a fundamental crisis that threatened to tear apart everything they had built. The front office personnel exchanged worried glances as the magnitude of the situation became undeniable, realizing they were facing a complete dismantling of their competitive core before it could reach its full potential.
57,750 subscribers by the end of the day. We are 46 off. So Kelsey Mitchell is not... I highly doubt Kelsey Mitchell is going to play for 1 cent less than the Supermax. And I have a feeling she is going to be used, the core designation is going to be used on Kelsey Mitchell to guarantee she stays, and it will be a supermax for Kelsey Mitchell because there's 1 more year of the core designation. So with that, we are looking at $1.4 million for Kelsey Mitchell's contract. Odyssey Sims is not going to be coming back. Shout out Odyssey Sims, 27 points in Game 5 of the semi-final.
The brutal truth cannot be sugarcoated because the financial constraints are absolutely suffocating. Indiana simply lacks the monetary resources to bring back this same group of players for another season. While fans and analysts discuss team chemistry and championship potential, they're completely ignoring the harsh economic realities that govern professional basketball operations. The ownership group has reached a critical decision point where they must choose between retaining their established stars or maintaining any semblance of roster depth. Every contract dollar allocated to a veteran player directly reduces the funds available to surround Caitlin Clark with the supporting cast she requires. Internal communications reveal an organization consumed by uncertainty and desperation.
Her skill set clashes with Caitlin Clark, Leah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. If Caitlin Clark is going to be traded, which we know she's not going to be, but obviously in this weird hypothetical, and someone's trying to sabotage the team, and they pull in Nico Harrison, Odyssey Sims would be great to have back. Odyssey Sims in the open market, based on how she did last year, is probably going to command... My guess is, if I'm going to guess, the median contract in the league is going to be about 450k. I would say she's going to command about 500-ish k, a little bit over the median. As will Ari McDonald. The problem with Ari McDonald is she has not been injured, or she has not been healthy at all in her career. I'm going to say they're not going to keep Odyssey Sims, but I'm also...
Kelsey Mitchell represents the first catastrophic financial obstacle that will devastate the salary structure. She will demand nothing less than a supermax deal, creating an immediate $1.4 million commitment that consumes a massive portion of the available budget. The franchise will be forced to apply the core designation, essentially trapping both Mitchell and themselves in a binding financial arrangement. This single contract decision eliminates flexibility before they even begin addressing other roster needs. Many within the ownership structure are expressing serious reservations about this gamble, fearing it will create an unbalanced team structure that prioritizes individual talent over collective depth.
Heavy and vulnerable.
To give money to injured players. It's very, very weird. Bree Hall won't be coming back, so let's just ignore her. Shea Petty won't be coming back. Natasha Howard. So, Natasha Howard is going to want a max contract. She's not going to deserve a max contract. Some dumb team is going to give her a max contract. My expectation is that somewhere Natasha Howard is going to make 900k. And I don't think people want the Indiana Fever to run it back with Natasha Howard, but I have a feeling they're going to run it back. They're going to try to run it back with Howard. I have this really bad feeling they're going to try to run it back with Howard. Then you've got Aaliyah Boston. Aaliyah Boston's contract is going to be... She's going to make the max.
The complications extend far beyond superstar contracts into the problematic realm of mid-tier talent evaluation. Odyssey Sims exemplifies this dilemma perfectly. despite her explosive scoring performances that occasionally reach 27 points. Her playing style creates conflicts with the developmental trajectories of Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, making her retention counterproductive. Market forces will drive her salary demands well beyond $500,000, representing a significant investment in a player who might actually impede the growth of their franchise cornerstones. Ownership has definitively rejected the possibility of paying premium prices for a player whose skill set doesn't align with their long-term strategic vision.
Caitlin Clark right now is going to be at 500k. So you're looking at then, so we've got one player here in Caitlin, 2 in Lexi, 3 in Sophie, 4 in Leah, 5 in Howard, 6 in Ari, 7 in Kelsey Mitchell. You now no longer have, there is now, for a 7 million salary cap, this is just, again, based on my expectations. You now have to fill out the entire team with vet minimum players or lower, and you can't afford your first round pick.
Ari McDonald's situation illustrates the heartbreaking intersection of talent and reliability concerns that plague roster construction decisions. Her injury history creates an unacceptable level of risk for an organization operating under severe budget constraints. Despite demonstrating solid production when healthy, her frequent absences make her a luxury the Fever cannot justify financially. The WNBA's tendency to reward injured players with substantial contracts has finally prompted Indiana's ownership to take a firm stance against speculative investments. They refuse to allocate $500,000 to a player who might spend crucial playoff moments in rehabilitation rather than contributing on the court.
To run it back means the Fever literally, and that is by the way, undershooting what these players are going to go for. They're going to go for more money than this. I'm undershooting this. The remaining 5 players with Indiana Fever have to be vet minimums, which means that it doesn't matter who's that 10th pick is, they can't afford to keep them. Players on this team that will be vet minimums. KK Timpson is going to cost about 300k. I think she's going to cost the minimum if you keep KK Timpson. We have seen that Sid Colson and Bree Turner are going to command more than the minimum. Why?
Natasha Howard's contract demands have created an explosive standoff that could reshape the entire roster construction approach. Reports suggest she's seeking maximum contract money despite recent performance levels that don't necessarily warrant such an investment. The organization fears that another team will make an irrational offer, forcing Indiana into an impossible choice between overpaying or losing their interior defensive anchor. Current projections place her market value around $900,000, a figure that ownership has categorically refused to match. This standoff threatens to create locker room division while leaving critical positional needs unaddressed.
They might have to let Sophie or Lexi walk. And running it back is not even an option. Like, they might literally have to keep their first round pick, they might have to get rid of Kelsey Mitchell. Like, that is the extent of the financial issues, that they might actually have to get rid of Kelsey Mitchell to keep their first overall pick. With a lot of this team building, it becomes awkward. And then you take into account that Caitlin Clark's on a max next year. Like, you can't keep Kelsey Mitchell in 2027. And if you keep Kelsey Mitchell in 2027, someone did the maths and they're like,
Aaliyah Boston represents the foundation of the franchise, but her upcoming contract negotiation will consume another massive chunk of the available salary space. Her maximum contract demand of $1.2 million, combined with Mitchell's Supermax deal, creates a nearly $3 million commitment before addressing any other roster positions. The ownership group recognizes they're constructing an extremely fragile structure where a single injury or performance decline could collapse the entire competitive framework. Boston now faces enormous pressure to perform at an MVP level because the organization cannot afford quality depth to support her efforts.
you do what the Phoenix Mercury did last year. Except you're not going to be able to sign a Sammy Wickham. Basically do what the Mercury did last year. And the Indiana Fever are I'm not going to say the worst scouting team, but are up there in the worst scouting teams. They scout like it's 2015 again. So them, the Aces, the Sky, they don't scout overseas. They don't look for these players. Like someone, like you even look at the Lynx, like they brought in Badian last year, who would have been fucking great for most teams. She just didn't want to come back after Eurobasket. There is a lot of talent overseas that you're going to have to look for, and the Fever aren't going to look for that. So what the Fever are going to end up doing is you're going to end up getting a bunch of...
The financial mathematics become even more terrifying when examining role players like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall, whose contributions are valued but potentially unaffordable. Cunningham's market value sits firmly around $700,000, with the absolute minimum being $500,000, even with a hometown discount. Hall's restricted free agent status could drive her price even higher if competing teams decide to make aggressive offers. These two complementary players could easily consume another $1 million in salary commitments, pushing the organization dangerously close to the salary cap ceiling while leaving multiple roster spots unfilled. The dream of continuity is being systematically destroyed by economic reality, and Caitlin Clark's current $500,000 salary represents merely a temporary placeholder before her inevitable massive payday. Adding 7 or 8 key players quickly exhausts the $7 million salary cap, leaving no financial resources for additional personnel. Ownership confronts the terrifying prospect of fielding only 7 players with a completely depleted budget, forcing them to fill remaining positions with minimum wage contracts or unproven rookies. They cannot even afford to retain their first-round draft pick because the slotted salary would trigger financial catastrophe. This desperate situation might force the unthinkable decision to core and trade Kelsey Mitchell simply to afford a rookie who has never played professional basketball. The 2027 financial outlook creates even more devastating circumstances that border on organizational desperation. Once Caitlin Clark transitions to her true maximum contract, every vestige of financial flexibility disappears entirely. Mathematical projections reveal that even if Clark, Mitchell, and Boston accepted regular maximum deals instead of supermax contracts, the remaining roster would consist entirely of league minimum players. This creates an impossible situation where 3 stars must play exhausting minutes because the bench consists of players who probably don't belong in professional basketball. The Phoenix Mercury's catastrophic experience with this model serves as a terrifying warning that ownership desperately wants to avoid repeating. Indiana's reputation as one of the worst scouting organizations in professional basketball compounds their financial crisis exponentially. Their outdated approach focuses exclusively on domestic talent, while competitors successfully mine international markets for hidden gems who provide high-level production at bargain prices. Teams like the Aces have embraced global scouting networks, discovering talented players who can contribute meaningful minutes for minimal financial investment. Meanwhile, the Fever remain trapped in a 2015 mindset, recycling washed-up American role players instead of seeking innovative solutions. Ownership demands a complete scouting department overhaul, recognizing that this strategic blindness costs millions in potential value, while competitors find superior alternatives. Even veteran leadership has become an unaffordable luxury that ownership refuses to subsidize moving forward. Players like Sid Colson and Bray Turner provide invaluable locker room presence, but their salary demands exceed minimum wage because developing teams desperately overpay for experienced guidance. The organization cannot afford bidding wars for players who contribute minimal statistical production despite their cultural value. This cold mathematical approach prioritizes on-court efficiency over leadership and chemistry, creating toxic relationships between players and management. The philosophical shift toward pure financial metrics destroys the family atmosphere that defined last season's success. Players like Temi Fagbenle represent the broader systematic elimination of known commodities who showed promise but became unaffordable luxuries. Unless veterans accept absolute minimum salaries, they face immediate dismissal regardless of their potential contributions. Management has been instructed to evaluate price tags rather than talent or character, reducing human beings to ledger entries rather than family members. This brutal bottom-line mentality dismantles the positive ecosystem that fans celebrated, replacing it with cold corporate efficiency that leaves everyone feeling expendable and undervalued. The Stars and Scrubs model historically produces catastrophic results that the Fever ownership desperately wants to avoid. Phoenix Mercury's experience demonstrates how this approach leads to star burnout and role-player exposure during crucial moments. Indiana's ownership would rather destroy the current roster structure than trap themselves in an unsustainable financial arrangement with no depth, bench strength, or playoff survival capability. This radical decision reflects their belief that immediate reconstruction offers better long-term prospects than gradual decline, even though the short-term pain will be excruciating for everyone involved. Recent strategy meetings have reached boiling points when discussing first-round draft picks, with scouts excited about available talent, while accountants declare the selections literally unaffordable. The embarrassing prospect of passing on elite prospects because veteran contracts consumed all available resources represents organizational failure at the highest level. Ownership blames front office management for poor salary cap planning, while executives blame ownership for refusing luxury tax payments. This blame shifting creates paralyzed decision-making while players suffer the consequences of institutional dysfunction and finger-pointing rather than leadership and accountability. The underlying tragedy stems from obvious talent that clearly exists within the current roster structure. This team demonstrated championship-level competitiveness when firing on all cylinders. But WNBA financial structures aren't designed to maintain multiple maximum contract players together long-term. Caitlin Clark's presence generates unprecedented revenue streams, but league salary cap rules haven't evolved to reflect this new reality. Ownership frustration grows as they earn more money than ever, while remaining restricted by poverty-level spending limits that punish success, rather than rewarding organizational excellence and fan engagement. Circulating rumors suggest key players have already received unofficial notifications to explore alternative opportunities elsewhere. This uncertainty creates toxic locker room atmospheres, where athletes question their commitment levels, knowing the organization has abandoned them financially. Playing through injuries or diving for loose balls becomes meaningless when replacement by minimum wage players is inevitable within months. The ownership's roster rejection has created lame duck scenarios that threaten to sabotage current season performance through demolished morale and fractured chemistry. The scouting department's evolutionary refusal represents perhaps the most damaging hidden scandal throughout this entire organizational crisis. While competitors employ sophisticated analytics and international networks, Indiana relies on outdated methodologies that ignore second-tier international leagues, where valuable role players often develop. They're essentially attempting to shop at luxury boutiques with thrift store budgets while refusing to explore alternative markets. Ownership has finally recognized this strategic blindness and demands explanations for why better, cheaper international alternatives aren't being pursued aggressively and systematically. Trading Kelsey Mitchell would trigger nuclear fan backlash since she represents the team's heart and competitive soul. However, ownership recognizes that Caitlin Clark's 2027 maximum contract makes Mitchell's retention mathematically impossible without sacrificing all roster depth. They face an impossible choice between trading Mitchell now for return value or losing her later, while remaining financially crippled. This damn scenario has paralyzed front office decision-making as they struggle with betraying fan loyalty versus organizational survival and long-term competitive viability. This franchise has become a victim of its own tremendous potential after drafting basketball's greatest prospect without preparing for the financial consequences of superstar management. Ownership rejects the 2026 roster because they finally recognize the approaching fiscal cliff that threatens organizational survival. They're prioritizing financial stability over roster continuity, accepting that the results will devastate fan expectations and competitive performance. Supporters should prepare for massive talent exodus as the current Indiana Fever transforms into something completely unrecognizable by 2026. The ultimate tragedy involves a championship window closing before it ever truly opened for this specific group of talented players. Fans desperately wanted to witness Clark, Boston, and Mitchell develop into a dynastic core, but accountants have already decided this opportunity won't materialize. Professional sports' most important battles aren't always fought on basketball courts, but are frequently lost in boardrooms with calculators and red pens. Indiana Fever exists in total chaos where ownership might save short-term dollars while sacrificing their chance at basketball immortality and championship glory.